Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show. Today I am here with Bryan Quinby, who is the host of Street Fight Radio and the host of the new metal podcast, the P.O.D.Kast. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. I am recording a lot. I'm doing a lot of work because there's nothing else to do. So I've been working pretty much nonstop since the quarantine started.
That's good. You got to make sure you're able to buy your toilet paper, right?
Yeah. I'm more like I'm very lucky in that my job isn't really affected too much by it. I mean, it could be down the road when people can't afford to pay for podcasts, and my wife's
Yeah.
job is she works from home and it's pretty safe. So I'm a pretty lucky guy. Am not getting. I mean, we lost a bunch of money because of tour dates and stuff, but I
hmm
mean, I think we'll be able to get that back. So from
Yeah.
Donald Trump, we get a small business bailout. I think we're going to be okay.
Right. That's good. So, how long have you been doing Street Fight Radio, and how'd you get started doing that?
I started in 2011. We were just me and my buddy. I did a show with my buddies, and we brought this other guy on, Brett, and me and him just had like really great chemistry. So we decided to do our own thing, and it ended up taking off after some of our friends. Some we're friends with Chapo Trap House. We had them on our show a lot, and when they kind of hit, they gave us a lot of credit and got a lot of people to listen to our show. So it became my job. And in 2016, so we've almost been a decade. Next year.
That's cool. Um, so what made you want to start the POD cast?
Well, John, my co-host, I did Blocked Party, which is John's his main podcast, and me and him talked about new metal on that show quite a bit. And he had been wanting to start a new metal podcast for a while, and he just didn't know who to have co-host the show.
hmm
And then after me and him did a show together, he was like, "Oh, do you want to do one?" And I said, "Yeah, man. As long as it's not a ton of work and it's twice monthly podcast, so it is not a ton of work. It's fun to do."
That's good. I really enjoy it, even though I don't always agree with the things you guys say on there.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. We're kind of I don't know, like we're two different generations and also largely had moved on from
Yeah.
like not listening to it much, and this is like kind of us reconnecting with this thing that we loved so much, like I saw Korn. The first time I saw Korn was in 1995, and they were
Oh wow.
opening for Megadeth. And I've been following them for their whole run, and watched them turn into an arena rock band, and have been very impressed with them, especially lately. I think that the new album is great in a
hmm
way that I kind of didn't expect Korn to be able to do anymore. So it's a pleasant surprise that there's kind of almost a revival happening, and that there are young people who grew up watching or grew up like with their older brothers or older sisters or like older kids listening to it, and are now like, like, oh, this was very influential to me. This was like this was a kind of music that I thought was so cool when I was younger, and then everybody kind of turned on it. So it's fun to like defend it,
hmm
without, because I think like essentially like we make fun of a lot of it, but like I think all metal is goofy, like I don't think that like new metal is any more goofy than death metal or like
Yeah.
doom metal or anything like that. And it's fun to like kind of make fun of it, and it's also fun to like revel in the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, because like nowadays, because like whenever I started getting into new metal, I was 14. That's why I bought Hybrid Theory. and this is 2012. So
Yeah.
by then, like no one was really into it at all. And by the time, and so, like, when I entered high school, it was like, oh, like, I'm kind of this weird kid who just listens to Linkin Park and Korn and Limp Bizkit all the time. And then eventually, after a few more years, like, it became a thing again. But, like, it wasn't like the same bands. It was like newer bands, like this band called Issues. There's Attila, Amir, From Ashes to New, Cane Hill, bands like that. I Prevail, and they were like younger bands, not quite my age, but like maybe about 10 years older than me. And they played like new metal music that was more in a more modern style, more influenced by, like, metalcore and stuff like that. So, like, it eventually came back, and no one really caught on to it yet. But, like, because I had known what new metal was, I was able to watch it, and I was like, oh, okay, there's new metal bands coming. And then now it's kind of like a thing, and kids who are like a little bit younger than me are able to enjoy this new age of new metal, and it's kind of exciting.
It's exciting to see people kind of going back and saying, "Hey, this was actually good." You know, uh, for a number of years, it was like you kind of just even denied that you were ever there were so many people who kind of denied that they were even ever a fan of it. And it's like, well, I mean, it was a like really big thing. So I think more people than will admit it were listening to that stuff back then. And in the early days of Street Fight, I talked about new metal a lot on that show. One of our first bonus shows was a show about new metal. And I find it fascinating that the people that are younger than me that got into it, because like I was like sort of there at the beginning, and I watched it all unfold in front of me. Like I was going to the concerts and stuff. I got to see a lot of this stuff in the very early stages, and it's really neat to see how everybody comes in at kind of a different point. Like on your side, it's like Linkin Park. I was like kind of done with new metal when Linkin Park came out. I like moved on, so I like, we did the Linkin Park episode, and I was like, I understand why people like it. It's not like my favorite stuff, but it's because I don't have a strong connection to this thing like I do Korn, who was like, I heard Korn first, and I was like listening to it, and I grew this like really strong connection. So listening to some of the other stuff that I didn't listen to at the time has proven to be kind of like a weird kind of experiment, because it's like, I think that like my reviews for something like Hybrid Theory would have been different in 2003 or 2004, than they are now. And like it was always kind of a part of the Street Fight universe that I was a new metal guy. And you know, I defended it a lot. And I watched as the years went by. It was like I defended it a lot less as like we got further away from it, and it has basically morphed into like almost classic rock. There's a bunch, the bands that are still doing it are still doing it and are able to do it in arenas and stuff like that. It's not a lot of them, but these scenes in metal happen, and like there are a lot of them that like with hair metal, like 3 or 4 bands come out at the end and can tour. And that's kind of what's happening now. And I'm seeing like these young rappers that are very new metal influenced and stuff like that. And I think it's like, if rock music is going to come back, it's going to be like a revival of new metal. I think is because that seems like what's in the air right now.
Yeah, and it's funny because what you said about how some people denied that they were ever into new metal when Limp Bizkit's Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water is still the fastest selling rock album of all time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
after all these years, it's like, yeah, go ahead.
they act like nobody liked Limp Bizkit, and it's like when fucking Roland's video came out, when the video for Roland came out, everybody was going nuts for Roland. You know, everybody was singing the song and like doing like the hand thing to the song, and it was like, okay. I mean, yeah, I understand the temptation to do like revisionist kind of history when it comes to your music taste. Like, you know, there was a long time where I would not admit that I liked the Doors, you know, ever in my life. I was like, oh, I just thought the Doors sucked. But like, I didn't. I loved the Doors when I was in like the 7th grade and we were watching the movie over and over again every day and getting high and stuff. And like, that seems like what happened with nu metal. It's like, oh yeah, I was a fan of it, but you know, not seriously or anything. It's like, motherfucker, you know every word to Headstrong by Trapped. So to be some kind of a fan to do that.
Yeah, I remember one day I put out this tweet. I said, don't act like there isn't a Polaroid picture of you with Janko jeans on in the middle of the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of the so what are like the big 4 or 5 bands do you think that there are when it comes to nu metal? Like in thrash, there's the big 4: Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth. Who do you think are like the big 4 or 5 of nu metal?
So we're gonna say the big 4.
Okay.
I think it's Korn. I can do 5, but I really think it's a big 3, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones. But Slipknot belongs in that category, you know, like, so I would say Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Slipknot. I don't really know of a 5th that really changed the scene, that provided something different. I guess maybe Coal Chamber was a little bit different from all of those other bands. Coal Chamber only really had one good album. I don't like the second Coal Chamber album. I only like Loco. And it feels like, you know, then you start talking about like stuff like Disturbed, but it's like Disturbed is like sort of from the same tradition that Slipknot's from. And like, you can trace these, there's like, I see it as like there's like 4 different kinds of nu metal, and that they can all be lumped in to one of these 4 categories, which is Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Slipknot. Like everything exists on a graph with those 4 in the corner, like that political map, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's 5 bands, and I think it's Korn, Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, and Linkin Park.
Yeah, you would be totally right about Linkin Park too. Like I will totally give that to you. They weren't like important to me, but like they are important to the genre of music, and like maybe even more influential than any of the other bands, really.
Yeah, probably.
You know, if we start looking at like what music is now, and like what, you know, certain like 21 Pilots and stuff like that, it's like it's undoubtedly they came up listening to Linkin Park, you know, and like, so they're super influential. They just like weren't like really in my wheelhouse. You know, you're a 22, 23-year-old, you have a much different attitude about some of the stuff that Linkin Park was singing about than you would if you were 14 or 15 years old, you know? And I had grown past it and kind of felt like it was kids' music. I mean, and that's what I said on the P.O.D.Kast episode. It's like, you know, it's music for teenagers. I get why teenagers would love this, you know? Yeah. It's just, it didn't come out at the right time for it to have hit me in the way that it hit a lot of other people that are younger than me.
Yeah. And then like what you were saying about how there's 4 different types of nu metal, like in today's world with nu metal, a lot of the newer nu metal bands of the last 4, 5, 6 years, you can hear that. So like there's like bands that sound like Linkin Park, but they're influenced like metalcore. I call them like parkcore. And there's bands that sound like Korn or Slipknot, and I call them like corncore, not core. There's bands. There's like 2 or 3 bands that sound like Limp Bizkit. I call them Biscuit Core. So like, yeah, that's it's really a thing. Because like
Limp,
for people
Limp,
my yeah, go ahead. Go
Limp
ahead.
Bizkit is owed like
Yeah.
a lot of respect that like they're never gonna get. I guess that's what happens when you name your band Limp Bizkit,
Limp
you know. But they
Bizkit.
are owed a lot of respect. I believe. Like I really find I think that uh, Significant Other is, I think, that the new metal album, like of all of them, I think the most important one, the biggest one, is Significant Other, and like they just don't get credit outside of like people like us, like
Yeah.
a lot of people just automatically assume that they suck, and you're like, well, they sold I mean, so many people love that album, and like you could put that album on any time and people are going to sing along to it now.
Yeah. And then so like for like as far as Limp Bizkit's influence goes, like for people my age, we had 2 bands that were like kind of like almost like Limp Bizkit clones that were compared to Limp Bizkit whenever I was like in high school. There was a Mirror and this band called Attila. And ironically their singers names also start with FR, Franz, and Frankie. And they're both like mini like millennial Fred Dursts.
I
So
actually
like yeah,
The
yeah, go
funny
ahead.
thing is, one of the roadies for Attila is a Street Fight fan, so I got to go see them open for ICP. They
Oh,
guest listed me
nice.
and stuff. I didn't get to meet anybody in the band or anything like that, but I was like, this fucking crazy that this is happening now. When Attila played, I was like, this is crazy. This is like a total. I feel like it's the late '90s, early 2000s.
Right? Yeah. And but yeah, so for people my age, we basically had 2 Fred Dursts, and it was interesting to watch. They're even almost as controversial or even more controversial than he was.
Yeah, I
But
mean, if you're touring with ICP, you're probably fairly
yeah,
controversial.
yeah. So what do you think is the best new metal album?
I mean, best and my favorite are like two different things, you know. I
Yeah.
think the best one is White Pony, probably. Like
Okay.
of all of them, I think that's the most strong. Uh, it's the most universal one. Like you can play that for almost anybody that likes rock music, and they'll be like, "Holy shit, this is like actually really good." You can really surprise people with White Pony.
Hmm.
My favorite is probably, I mean, I really like the first Korn album a lot. I've gone through phases with it where I kind of am like, I wish it sounded better, but
Hmm.
I that album was very important to me, and like I probably only listened to that album for 2.5 years. Like I didn't listen to any other music but that Korn album. So I think I like the first Korn a lot, and but White Pony I think is what I would use to turn anybody on to like that kind of music. I think that album's like, a masterpiece. There's just like one song on it that I don't like.
What's the one song you don't like on White Pony?
Elite. I don't like that song very much.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that won a Grammy, you know.
I know that's the weirdest part about it. Is like, I think, two of their worst songs are Elite and Ricketts. And it's so weird that Elite was the one that won the Grammy, because it's like, oh god damn, man. Like it had to be one I don't like.
But yeah, I think the best new metal album is probably Follow the Leader. Because it's a good mixture of things. It had some features on it, and I think that one's probably the best. It's also I wouldn't say it's my favorite. My favorite new metal album is probably or Hybrid Theory, probably. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It is pretty amazing how like people your age, uh like they Linkin Park really like grabbed everybody, at that when they came out, everybody between like probably 12 and 25 or no, everybody between 12 and like 20 You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that era before, like maybe even 21. It's like once you get a few years out of adulthood, you start to have kind of different opinions on stuff. And like, I had changed my taste in music quite a bit by that time. It was like for so many years, I was just like only new metal. And it, I think I listened to it too much in a way where it was like you have to like find something else to break it up,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
I
that's how I
moved away
started
from
feeling
it.
when I got to college. That's how I started feeling when I got to college because I think what was like I know like I tweet about Limp Bizkit a lot for someone who probably doesn't listen to Limp Bizkit as much as I used to. Like I probably listen to like Limp Bizkit maybe once a month, and that's probably been a thing for me for like the last 4 or 5 years. But like over the last couple of years, I've had to really get into some like other stuff, like still some metal, but like I've gotten into like groove metal and stuff like that, and some metalcore and stuff like that over the last couple of years.
I mean, I
So,
probably actually tweet about new metal more than I listen to it. I mean, I have to listen to it once a month for sure. But like, I've been listening to Danzig a lot lately, which is definitely not new metal, and I really like country music and I really like rap music. And I was really into the Mars Volta and stuff for that time. And I like punk quite a bit now, which was something I never gave a chance when I was listening to new metal. I like my tastes have like really I credit Deftones almost with it because Deftones would name bands that they were fans of that didn't seem like bands like Radiohead and like Weezer and stuff. Like
yeah,
once or the Smiths, like Deftones would name check those guys and then I would go and check them out. And then like it opened my mind to new types of music where then like I went on, a journey. I'm still going on like a journey. I like listening to all kinds. I want to hear the best of all kinds of stuff.
yeah. What was I about to say? Oh yeah, and you used to listen to Insane Clown Posse too, right?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I was a huge juggalo. Probably that's the band I've seen more than any other band in concert. And it's like in the 20s, I would say.
Oh really? What's your favorite ICP album?
I like the Riddle Box a lot, and I like some of the EPs quite a bit. Like I always like Tunnel of Love a lot, and
Oh yeah.
Beverly Kills 90187 is like a really good underrated ICP album that I listen to quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the one with the stalker on it, right?
Yeah,
And
it
top.
has
Yep. Yeah.
In the Ha, which is like one of my favorite ICP songs, but like probably Riddle Box because I still sometimes listen to I'm Coming Home. Like I love
Yeah,
that song.
me too. Yeah, like the first ICP album I ever listened to is one of their newer ones. It was The Mighty Death Pop that came out in 2012. My friend, he bought it on CD and he let me borrow it. And I was like, okay. Like I'd only heard like one song by ICP beforehand, and it was Chicken Hunting.
Yeah.
And then I bought the Riddle Box CD, and I got into that one. I really liked that one. Was probably my second favorite. And then Great Malenko and Ringmaster and what's the other one that came out in '99?
The Carnival of Carnage or the
No,
Jekyll
no, no,
Brothers.
Jekyll
Bizarre
Brothers,
Bizarre.
Jekyll Brothers,
Yeah.
Jekyll Brothers, Jekyll
I think I
Brothers.
got
Yeah,
to
because I
Bizarre. The two Bizarre albums were the ones where I kind of dropped off. Where I liked those, and then after that, I was like, I think I got the idea here.
yeah, like I liked the ones that they had in the '90s. I liked those quite a bit. I didn't really like the ones they had in the 2000s, and then I like two of the albums that they've released within the last 10 years or so, which is Mighty Death Pop and the one they put out last year. I can't think of the name right now, but yeah, those. But ICP is really good. I was actually going to go see them in a couple of months, but then it
Ugh.
got canceled because of coronavirus. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
sucks. It sucks. I'm like holding on to these Rage Against the Machine tickets. Like, when's the refund coming? Like, I hope it doesn't, I hope the tour happens, but July
Yeah.
seem like
Yeah.
it just seems like it's so uncertain right now whether anything's going to be happening at any time. It's really sad to me. I think I hate the idea that there aren't like large crowds of people gathering in places. It's sad.
Yeah. Who do you think is the most overrated new metal band?
God, I'll probably have to say like Disturbed. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
like that band, and I'm not a fan of them at all. I'm blocked by their lead. Their lead singer blocked me on Twitter very early on, but it just
What?
it was a
That's
band
funny.
it was a band I never liked, and but kind of felt like they took the Slipknot thing and they made it more mainstream. It feels like a band geared toward mainstream success. The music comes off very much like it's written for rock radio, and that kind of thing is a turnoff to me. And like when you say overrated, like people always be like, what do you think is the most overrated thing? And I don't think they get what the idea of overrated is that it has to be popular. And I think Disturbed is one of the most popular bands in the genre. Like I think that like as far as radio play goes, they still get a ton.
Oh
So
yeah.
I probably say Disturbed is the most overrated because like I also just don't even know who that music's for. Like I can tell you who Linkin Park is for. I can tell by listening to it. Like this Linkin Park is for like younger people who might be going through some stuff, and Linkin Park sounds totally different from Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Cold Chamber, Orgy. Like they're like a totally different thing. But Disturbed sounds like the most generic version of all of it, just kind of mixed together to me.
Yeah, that's something I've heard a lot of people say. Like, what is it? I remember someone made this poll one time. They said, which new metal band made the same song but like a bunch of different times, and everyone was like Disturbed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The guy's politics are shit, and like so that makes it easier for me to dislike him too. But like
Hmm.
also just I mean, as generic as they were just very generic, And that I found a lot of I listened to a lot of bands that like weren't hugely popular, maybe had one hit or something like that. I listened to, I love that Head PE self-titled album. I think that thing is
Oh,
so
yeah.
good. I think that's like that might be like one of the most underrated bands of the time. But also I just finished doing an episode about this, but POD sucks.
I had to go revisit some POD after you all did that review because I was like, I've never really been into POD, but like I never really like disliked them either. So I like revisited what was it? You guys reviewed the Satellite album,
Satellite,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I already knew which songs I did like on there, which is only like maybe 4 or 5 songs. Like,
It
it was
would
like
be
the three, yeah, which is like, the popular ones that they play all the time, which is Boom and Youth of the Nation and what's the other one? Alive. And then I
yeah.
think, what's the other one? Then the self-titled track, Satellite. I like those four, but then like the rest of them I didn't really like that much at all. And then, yeah. But I don't
It's an
know. That's not really. Go ahead.
it's an album that doesn't have I don't feel like it's an album that has like any hard emotions at all in a way. And like part of new metal was like the anger, the sadness and stuff like that. That was like part of the whole thing. And I've never listened to the fun. I have back in the day, but it's been decades now, or a decade and a half now. But like I remember Southtown. I remember enjoying that song, and that
Yeah,
album.
that's a
I
good.
feel like if John had picked that POD album, there was a
Mhm.
lot more of a chance that they would have got a review. This Satellite really sounded generic to me. Like the bad songs are so bad that you're embarrassed listening to them. Like, you would never want to have somebody catch you listening to the song Ridiculous. It's like one of the most embarrassing songs I've ever heard. The song they did with HR is just like, and it's like, this is fucking HR from Bad Brains. You're going to make me hate a song by one of the guys from Bad Brains. This is horrible. But like, it's a soulless album. You know, Satellite feels like an album with no kind of like soul, or it's too cleaned up. And you know, I know I said earlier I want them to clean up the first Korn album, but that's because that album is so muddy. You know, like it would be like if I was gonna clean up the first Korn album, I'd clean it up to like maybe around the Fur levels. I wouldn't like clean it up to sound like Def Leppard, like the Def Leppard record every string on the guitar and overlay it and all that shit. I just would like it to be fixed. You know, I think it's a great injustice that this band's first album isn't their most, like, it's their best, most complete work. I feel like the first Korn album is their most complete work. And like, I don't love Chutes and Ladders, but like there are a lot of people that do. And I just think that album is the one you listen to if you want to understand who Korn is. And it's sad that it is so muddy that like the heavy parts don't really feel heavy anymore when I listen to it.
I never really thought of it that way before, because I've always listened to it. Like I bought it on CD. And I never really thought too much about it being not being remastered or anything. So I wonder what it would sound like if they did remaster it. I wonder if it would sound, you know, good still.
Well, but
go ahead.
But one of the reasons I bring that up is because if you've heard the Nothing, that album is fucking great and heavy.
Yeah.
And if it was recorded in the same style as the first Korn album, what would that sound like? You know, that's like the question. You know, what are those riffs? Because there are riffs on that first Korn album that are just fucking were brutal. When you heard them in concert, it was crazy. But when I listened to that album to do the episode about that album, I was just like, none of this like has like this is going to be a really weird explanation. Either you'll get it or you won't. I don't know if you're a listener, but heavy metal to me, the guitar riffs have to have a sharp edge to them. Like they have to like kind of cut through. They have to like kind of cut, almost like they're trying to hurt your ears in a way. Like Pantera's really good at this. Like the riff at the beginning of Walk. It's like it is this fucking really heavy thing, and then when you listen to it and they've sanded those kind of those kind of sharp points off in the metal song by not recording it in the best way. Now in 1995 when I heard it, I loved the sound of it. I thought it was so cool because it was so fucking raw, you know. But just in 2020, like I've just changed my opinion on it, and I think that like it's not that hard to like make the argument that like if the first Korn album sounded like Follow the Leader, people would find the first Korn album to be the best Korn album. But now most people are like, no, I think it's Follow the Leader. That's like their best album, you know?
Yeah. Let's see here. Had something. Oh yeah. Off the topic of new metal, do you know who the band Helmet is?
I do. I think I probably saw them in concert, opening for somebody or something. But my brother was a very big Helmet fan. I was not into them. I was really. It was. It was so narrow what I liked that like I can't even picture living in that world now. Like I would never be happy again if I was still the same guy, where it was like Helmet wasn't cool enough for me to like. You know the band Filter?
Yeah.
I was like, in the back of my mind, I loved Filter, but I like told all my friends I hated them and that they sucked. You know, like that was how close. Like I was so close-minded. You know, the only band I really gave a pass to the whole time. There's two bands, and it's Smashing Pumpkins and Pearl Jam. Like I never stopped liking. I probably wouldn't have admitted I liked Pearl Jam or Smashing Pumpkins, but I have always weirdly, and like it's not in my wheelhouse or anything, but I think the Smashing Pumpkins are my favorite of those of those
Grunge
90s
bands,
bands. I think I think Billy Corgan is an idiot, but he's also like a really great musician and I love him.
Yeah.
But like I bought Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, and that was like sort of me going to my friends like, yes, I like Smashing Pumpkins. What are you going to do about it? You know? But that was a long way to answer that Helmet didn't sound like what I wanted to hear. You know, I bet you I would like them now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into Helmet a little bit, mostly because they sound a lot like a lot of alternative metal bands of like the last 25 years. Like they sound like 3 Days Grace, or 3 Days Grace sounds like Helmet, Chevelle sounds like Helmet. And so I was like, okay, let me listen to what they were into, and then Helmet's great.
That's
What did
that's
you?
how I found out that I like Duran Duran. Was the Deftones did a cover of The Chauffeur, and Jonathan Davis always cited Duran Duran as like a inspiration. And then I went and listened to Duran Duran, and I was like, this fucking shit rules.
Yeah. How did you feel about bands like 3 Days Grace, Seether, Breaking Benjamin, and Chevelle?
This is what you disagree with me on, isn't it? You know what? We make fun of them a lot on the show. We're obviously gonna probably cover Seether, and I'll listen to them and be like, "Oh, they're not as bad as I thought they were." You know, I like Puddle of Mud. Weirdly, like just a Puddle of Mud guy. But they came at a time in my life where I was very much like a music snob guy, you know, and I made fun of them and I didn't really like them a lot, and then like never even got around to really listening to them outside of the radio. So my opinion on them is generally negative, but it is on. It's like one of those low information kind of things. You know how like when you're watching the election and people are like, are you for Medicare for all? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, who you voting for? And they're like, Biden.
Yeah.
And you're like, why aren't you voting for Bernie Sanders? And they're like, I don't know. There's just, I have a negative opinion of him. That's like how I feel about those bands. I think it's like an irrational negative opinion.
Yeah, because I'm into those bands quite a bit too. I was kind of into them in high school and got a little bit more into them in college. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're not. They're so popular. That's the thing that people don't think about either. Is like fucking some band I had never. Oh my god, I can never remember the name of this. Starset played here.
I know who they are.
And I saw the line for that Starset concert, and I was like, it was sold out in this pretty big venue here. Like, like if I did, like, who else? Ween plays there. Marilyn Manson played there the last time he was here. So like, it's not a small. Actually, Young Thug, like every popular musician that comes through plays this place, and they fucking sold it out. And I was like, I've never heard a second of a Starset song. I know that it's like rock music, you know. I don't know. I'm hoping that in the course of the P.O.D.Kast, depending on like how long it goes, it's a monthly show, so I might be 57 years old doing some of that. But I would like to have the opportunity maybe to go back through and look at some of these bands that maybe I had a very close mind to at the time. I was a really big Stained fan.
Yeah, I like Stained too. Yeah. Yeah, Dysfunction and Break the Cycle. Those
I
are good
love
albums.
Dysfunction. My roommate learned how to play the bass line from Mud Shovel, and it's like
Yeah.
he would just sit in the living room the whole time and play the bass line to Mud Shovel.
Yeah. No, I hope you guys cover some of the newer new metal bands one day. Like I
Well,
want like cover like Attila or something or
yeah,
Amir. Yeah.
the phone, the new way, the way that we're picking the albums kind of limits. Like if we do, like it's like one of those things where it's like we can put stuff up like that, but it's there's usually one or two that are like in the running to win, and then everybody else just gets demolished. Seven Dust had 6% of the
Yeah,
poll,
no.
where Science won by like a lot, and like so it's almost like we're gonna have to get to the point, I think, where we've covered a lot of this stuff, or come up with bits or ways to get to some of the more obscure stuff. Because like I've been taking shots at it. Like I tried Candy Ass by Orgy 3 times and it didn't win. I was really bummed out because I really wanted to cover that album. And I tried Dysfunction by Stained, which I think it's not a there's the album after that I think was a lot bigger than Dysfunction. So I
Yeah.
tried that and it didn't work out. And Head PE's first album, I was like, oh, Catatonic Youth posted this really fucking cool or funny Head PE video. I'll bet you people would be into doing Head PE. And they wanted Incubus Science. And it's like you can't when you're doing a podcast like we do, you really do have to like you have to pick and choose. The most unfortunate thing is that it's monthly. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that bothers people. Because it's like, oh, you're never gonna get to any of this stuff. But like, I mean, I can't. It would be John's a teacher and he does another podcast, and like the amount of the amount of stuff I do, I can't fit like another show in every week. But I could see maybe sometime in the future, like if we ever, because we don't like really push the Patreon that much. We kind of like we have one, we do the bonus content. It's like you can get on it or not get on it. It's not a big deal. It's like divorced from the show, stuff like that. It's like, but it's not like a major part of my income, and it's not something that I don't even check it. I don't even know. I've never been to it before. But like I can see in the future one of the goals sort of being like 2 regular shows a month and then the bonus show. So it'd be 3 shows a month. I could do that. I can make that time. John is on the West Coast, so we can do it at like fucking midnight. We usually start them at midnight or 1 where I live.
That's cool. And what is the best new metal band that you've seen in concert or your favorite?
Deftones is the best. I mean, I love Korn a lot, and like they probably had a huge effect on me because it was like the first 7 concerts I went to. I think Deftones are that's the kind of band you go and see, and you're just like, I can't believe how good these guys are.
Yeah.
My
Go ahead.
co-host, got to see them play Around the Fur, like
Yeah.
all the way through, and I was like, damn, that would be a fun one to go to.
Yeah. I haven't seen that many bands in concert, actually. I have seen Korn.
They're great.
Yeah, as far as new metal bands go, I think I've only seen two, because there's Korn, and then I've seen the band Issues, and then I think that's it.
I
Because
got to see them
I've seen
all.
tons of it. Like I've seen a lot of other bands. Like I've seen Marilyn Manson. I've
Oh, he's
seen
so
Filter.
good.
Yeah, I've seen Filter. I've seen Candlebox. I saw
Oh, I like
Bad
it.
Wolves. Have you heard of the band Bad Wolf? Bad Wolves?
I've heard of them, but that, like I said, that's like like kind of out of my wheelhouse. I know I really like if I look at my if I look at my Spotify listening over the past, I don't know, the past few days, it's like I listened to Danzig 2, The Smiths, some Deftones, Tom Jones, and the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. So like I don't, I wish I did more rock music because I want it to come back. I don't want rock to be dead anymore. I want there to
Yeah,
be a huge rock band, you know?
yeah. And I've also seen Chevelle twice. I think that's the only
Yeah.
band I've actually seen twice. And then I've seen Trans Siberian Orchestra. That was the first band I ever saw. That was like
TSO,
10 years ago.
my
Yeah,
dad loves them.
yeah, mine does too.
My first show was Corn. Uh, my second show was Corn. The first 6 shows I saw were Corn, and then I think I've seen like all the big classic new metal bands and probably some not so classics. You know,
Mhm.
one of the things I really want to review that I think is really going to test the limits of what the audience will vote for is Soulfly's first album, which is like
Ooh, you
a
should do, like, I was thinking their second album. That'd probably be, I think that one's the more popular one. The one with
yeah,
the Jump the Fuck Up and Pain.
yeah,
Because I
I
know the
like that
first
one
one it
too.
has, yeah, because I know the first one, that one has Bleed with Fred Durst, which
It
is like a
also
really good, yeah.
it has
The,
Quilombo on it, which is like one
hmm
of my favorite songs by them. And like, I don't know, I like it's such a fucking weird thing too about putting bands up because like I want to put Marilyn Manson up, but he's not
hmm
really a new metal band. But like also he was around. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it wasn't like he was like completely divorced from it, and he was touring with some of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
So, or you know, there's like controversial ones that you would like to do, but you're like, you know what? People are tuning into this to hear us talk about new metal. Let's not like play with the definition. And if we do play with the definition, let's do it on Patreon so that like a bunch of people that listen don't have to hear it, you know, which
Yeah.
but we haven't even fucking around on Patreon really. We did Woodstock 99. Uh we did Who Then Now by Korn, Ozfest 2001 and 2002, and then next month we're doing the Deftones covers album on the bonus feed, which I think that's going to be really fun.
All right. Do you remember the band Snot and their first album? It
I
was
do
their only
remember
album.
yeah, I do remember Snot. I remember when their singer died, and I also remember when they released an album with other people singing the completed songs from the other album. But
Yeah.
I didn't listen to a lot of Snot. I saw them live a few times.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah,
yeah,
like I found out about them, long after they were around and Lynn Straight died. But when I found their first album, but can't find anywhere the second album with all the different singers singing the finished songs. That is like it doesn't exist. Like I can't find that
maybe it
CD or anywhere.
maybe it didn't come out. Um, I have to look for that, but maybe it just never came out. You know, I just remember there being a rumor about it, and then it also Spotify gets so muddy when it
Yeah.
comes to albums with multiple artists on them. Like they'll like when we reviewed the Woodstock '99 first CD, it was like a lot of them were grayed out and you couldn't even listen to them.
Wow. Well, anyway, I think that's all I have here. Thank you very much for coming on. It
You're
means a
welcome.
lot. Where
Hey,
can we find? Yeah, what were you about to say?
well, then let you know, the Snot album is called Straight Up,
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
and I'm trying to see. I want to see. Hold on, videos maybe. No, they don't have it. But thanks for having me. You can find me at Murder Brian on Twitter. That's
Yeah.
probably the best way to find me.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. It was fun.